Number one Ibble Dibble here. Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 6 of Meghan in Vogue. This is a re-upload. It looks like maybe someone was a little embarrassed about their appearance on this morning. Today, we are analyzing Meghan's favorite poet, Matt Haig. If you liked A Nice Nin, you will love Matt Haig. Quote, a personal favorite and the best reminder during the summer season, or any season as a matter of fact. End quote. Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. A note from the beach, read by its author, Matt Haig.
Hello, I am the beach. I am created by waves and currents. I am made of eroded rocks. I exist next to the sea. I have been around for millions of years. I was around at the dawn of life itself. And I have to tell you something. I don't care about your body. I am a beach. I literally don't give a blank. I am entirely indifferent to your body mass index. I am not impressed that your abdominal muscles are visible to the naked eye. I am oblivious. You are one of 200,000 generations of human beings. I have seen them all. I will see all the generations that come after you too. It won't be as many, I'm sorry. I hear the whispers the sea tells me. The sea hates you. The poisoners, that's what it calls you. A bit melodramatic, I know, but that's the sea for you, all drama. And I have to tell you something else. Even the other people on the beach don't care about your body. They don't. They are staring at the sea, or they are obsessed with their own appearance. And if they are thinking about you, why do you care? Why do you humans worry so much about a stranger's opinion? Why don't you do what I do? Let it wash all over you. Allow yourself to just be as you are. Just be, just beach.
Just be, just beach, bitches. If you're thinking, I remember that speech as delivered by my middle school best friend's mom as she was admonishing us for talking about which girls in our class were too fat and or too shy about it in the back seat of the car. So how did this man get a 600,000 pound advance to call it a poem and promote it on morning shows? I'm going to take a gander at the answer today. I haven't thought deeply about it, but it seems to me there are two basic types of writers in the world, those who write for practice and those who write for purpose. Any published scientist, for example, is writing purely for purpose. Anyone who writes for a living is writing for practice, from lowly paid comment troll to national poet laureate. A great writer is usually both. Hemingway's preternatural diction, for example, wasn't the simple transcription of lines from a particularly lucid mind. One of his most famous quotes from A Movable Feast is, quote, the only kind of writing is rewriting, end quote. He wrote every day from 7 a.m. to noon his entire adult life for practice, but he also accomplished his purpose in beautifully communicating touching theses, if you will, about alienation, masculinity, the fine line between life and death, etc. Haig is no Hemingway. To compare the two would be pissing on your leg and telling you it's raining. But he has cracked the code to publishing profitability by writing prolifically on the most popular topics in genres with the lowest editorial standards until he hit on something that sold really well: mental health. His bit of savoir-faire is maximizing the productivity of his practice while sufficiently maintaining the semblance of purpose. And his body of work is a template I believe Meghan attempted to use for her own benighted literary career. So let's delve a little deeper into the parallels between Meghan and her role model in terrible poetry and self-tanner application, shall we? I think the best way of exploring Matt Haig's celestial trajectory as an author on depression and anxiety is by going through his bibliography quickly in chronological order. First, let me give you some reference numbers. These are Amazon bestseller ranks. Spare is number 72, one of the best-selling books of all time, whether we like it or not. Ooh, it's jumped from 72 to 70 in the few hours between my recording this voiceover and taking this screenshot. I guess they update these things multiple times a day. Courtiers by Valentine Lowe, number 7,736. Revenge by Tom Bauer, number 20,479. Finding Freedom by Omid Scobie and Carolyn Durant, number 47,591. So knowing how popular those books were will give you some idea of how popular Matt Haig's books have been. He started out in 2002 as an author of business books. His first, titled How Come You Don't Have an E-Strategy? It's unranked on Amazon. It's out of print. His bio at the time read, quote, Matt Haig is a director of Peppermint PR, a successful communications company. He advises organizations of all types and sizes on how to integrate the internet as a key tool into their marketing communications mix. He is author of EPR, the Essential Guide to Public Relations on the Internet, the E-Marketing Handbook, the B2B E-Commerce Handbook, and many more, end quote. So yeah, a marketing person, a PR person, an advertising person. In 2003, he published Brand Failures, The Truth About the 100 Biggest Branding Mistakes of All Time, in the standard BuzzFeed listicle style. Its Amazon rank is 3,609,539. In 2004, he brought out Brand Royalty, How the World's Top 100 Brands Thrive and Survive. This one fared even worse, ranked at 5,631,116. He decided to change gears and write a YA novel, a genre much discussed in the news at the time. Matt's first effort was The Last Family in England, and this was a rework of Shakespeare's Henry IV Part 1. A dog named Prince is put down at the vet and tells us his life story from the table. It's told from the point of view of the dog. Prince strives to live up to the Labrador Pact, duty overall, and protect his family at any cost. The dog is Prince Hal. It deals with family issues including infidelity, death, grief, teenage insecurity, anger, and suicide. I don't imagine Harry or Meghan have ever read the Shakespeare original, but I could see them reading this because it is closer to their grade level, and perhaps imagining it genius and revelatory and prophetic for the sweet prince, loyal to the end for a family that didn't deserve him. In a pinned comment below, I'll link to the related post on Matt Haig's old personal blog that I think will give you a feel for how interesting he thinks he is. He tells us exactly which albums he listened to during writing and the type of pen and paper he used, and that he followed a vegetarian diet, to give you some idea. This book ranked 1,315,637, so it was roughly 5 times more popular than his business books. And this is when I think he realized that there is profit in lazy sentimentality. 2 years later, in 2006, he published The Dead Fathers Club, another YA Shakespeare rework. This one is Hamlet. It's told from the point of view of an 11-year-old whose father was murdered, but comes back to him as a ghost set on revenge. It deals with the ideas of competing loyalties, bullying, familial jealousy. How insightful was it?
Did you find it difficult to write from the perspective of an 11-year-old?
I found it hard coming up with the voice, but once I had the voice, I found it surprisingly, maybe even worryingly easy to write as an 11-year-old. Maybe that's because I'm essentially quite immature at heart.
And how well executed was it?
Plot of the book, awful. The writing style is awful. He said, she said, I said, then they said, I said, and then he said, and then I said, and then they said, and then I said, and then he said, and then I said, and then she said. No, there is a much cleaner form to write a discussion between a number of characters.
Even so, it ranks at 268,314. So this is the first book that Matt Haig actually made real money with, reinforcing the sad fact that lazily written interpersonal drama sells when packaged correctly. Further, I think he knew from this point on that he could survive and thrive as an author despite a total lack of voice, imagination, and style. The next year, he came out with a children's book. I think children's books are rarely the domain of people who really love and have special insight into the minds of children. Far more often, they're just authors interested in other things throwing spaghetti at a wall. This book ranks 599,974 on Amazon, not a bad number for even less work than The Dead Fathers Club. In 2008, he published The Possession of Mr. Cave. To quote the New York Times review, in The Possession of Mr. Cave, Matt Haig takes on the unspeakable terrors. In fact, he stacks the deck with them. The narrator's mother dead by suicide, his wife dead at the hands of a burglar, and his son Reuben dead by a stupid attempt to curry favor with bullying peers. What's left is Reuben's 15-year-old twin sister, Bryony. The question of what constitutes a 15-year-old's well-being and what a father's protection entails or should entail is at the heart of this complex novel. Terrence increasingly seems invaded and controlled by his dead son's memories and dark wishes, goaded into actions ever more dangerous and morally questionable. One thing that's interesting about the book reviews is that almost every single one, from 1-star ratings to 5-star ratings, mentions how relentlessly creepy and depressing the tone is. I regret to say I didn't get that from the excerpts, and it would be an improvement. Let me read you a paragraph. Cynthia's hand squeezed mine as we approached the church. I noticed her nails decorated with their usual black varnish, her face painted in her macabre style, and remembered her tear-stained joke that morning about how the one useful thing with regard to her sense of fashion was that she never had to think what to wear for a funeral. We pulled up at the church. We left the car with faces filled with the grief we felt, but also knew we had to show. As we walked past those cramped old graves of plague victims, I thought of all the dead parents separated from their children. Do you remember Cynthia's old ghost story about the plague boy who had been buried outside York's walls in line with the new laws, and the spirit of his mother rising up from the graveyard to search in vain for her son? She told you both it when you were younger, walking back with your oranges and candles from Christingle, and Reuben laughed at you for being scared. It is strange. I feel myself sinking. You remember one thing and there is always something else lurking below, pulling you under. But I must keep my head up. I must stay gulping the fresh air. It's not bad, but it's not good, is it? This is the quality level of a 3-page personal essay self-published on medium.com. This ranks on Amazon at 539,958. So perhaps Haig was plumbing the depths of hopeless mental health struggles and finding the minimum level of sap people require to continue buying books about these topics. That same year, he wrote another children's book, The Runaway Troll, which only did slightly worse, ranked at 603,674. 2 years later, in 2010, we have The Radleys, his first real success. According to the publisher, it's about, quote, a modern family, averagely content, averagely dysfunctional, living in a staid and quiet suburban English town. Peter is an overworked doctor whose wife, Helen, has become increasingly remote and uncommunicative. Rowan, their teenage son, is being bullied at school, and their anemic daughter, Clara, has recently become a vegan. They are typical, that is, save for one devastating exception. Peter and Helen are vampires! Read it and ask what we grow into when we grow up and what we gain and lose when we deny our appetites. This is in the era of The Vampire Diaries, True Blood, Twilight, and Haig was simultaneously refining his gimmick of dark but safe and relatable dysfunction in a family atmosphere and SEOing the shit out of it by conveniently making it another YA vampire thing. Many reviewers commented on how humorous the book was. I've now listened to 2 of Matt Haig's books and I don't find him funny. But for those who do, I think this is when he realized that people will buy garden variety personal problems with a dash of humor and hope, but probably not without. This ranked 98,049 on Amazon. Really, really not bad. In 2011, he published his last business book, Brand Success: How the World's Top 100 Brands Thrive and Survive. This is ranked as low as his other business books on Amazon, number 2,877,788. But I think it speaks to his feelings about himself that after 7 years not writing about branding, marketing, and PR, he wrote this book and then never wrote a business book again. I'm not convinced empathic YA author on trendy matters of personal struggle is the real Matt Haig. I think his persona is the product of a years-long self-branding experiment, and it worked. It paid off. The first line of the book's Amazon summary is, quote, "Brand success equals business success. A simple equation, but identifying those winning qualities is not easy," end quote. In 2011, Matt Haig felt he had found his winning qualities, his winning formula. It had taken him between 6 and 9 years, depending on how you count it, but he had figured out how to make it as an author, and it had nothing to do with writing. 2 years later, in 2013, we have another seller, The Humans. Here's the summary, quote, "When an extraterrestrial visitor arrives on Earth, his first impressions of the human species are less than positive, taking the form of Professor Andrew Martin, a prominent mathematician at Cambridge University. The visitor is eager to complete the gruesome task assigned him and hurry home to his own utopian planet, where everyone is omniscient and immortal. Slowly, unexpectedly, he forges bonds with Martin's family. He begins to see hope and beauty in the human's imperfection and begins to question the very mission that brought him there," end quote. I will never understand the great reviews Matt Haig gets. The Philadelphia Inquirer called this book silly, sad, suspenseful, and soulful, and Entertainment Weekly said it was full of heart. You know how on the Amazon sales page they show you the 3 most highlighted quotes by Kindle readers? Quote, "The single biggest act of bravery or madness anyone can do is the act of change," end quote. Quote, "Don't aim for perfection. Evolution and life only happen through mistakes," end quote. Quote, "In your mind, change the name of every day to Saturday and change the name of work to play," end quote. The Amazon rank is 5,115. This is the big leagues. This is the stratosphere. Matt Haig is now among the highest paid novelists. His first effort at the perfect product of his formula was a success. In 2013, he rolled out another money-making children's book called To Be a Cat. Once YA authors, or any author really, becomes very popular, their children's books inevitably start selling very well because parents buy one for them, one for their kid. Nothing about Matt Haig's children's books is great. They're very run-of-the-mill, but this run-of-the-mill kid's book sold better than his first 3 novels because he had achieved some level of fame or success. In 2014, we got another children's book, Echo Boy. It did not do very well, probably because of that creepy cover, but also doubling up on children's books, maybe not the best for sales. It's ranked 1,709,360. So he turned that ship around and pumped out another children's book on a theme that always works, Christmas. 2015's A Boy Called Christmas is a Santa origin story, and it ranks 104,723. Platitudes include, quote, "Trouble doesn't always have to be caused. It's sometimes already there," end quote. Reasons to Stay Alive, also written in 2015, was his breakout success, the book that made him not just a highly paid author, but a celebrity author. It's autobiographical, his memory of his own few months of very deep depression with suicidal ideation at age 24. This is the first Matt Haig book I read in full while preparing this video because I believe this is the first Matt Haig book Meghan struck upon. I think people are afraid to criticize this book because it's autobiographical and about suicide, and you feel bad for the guy. But I cannot tell you how inane I found it. Here are the most highlighted Kindle quotes. Quote, Maybe love is just about finding the person you can be your weird self with, end quote. Quote, life is waiting for you. You might be stuck here for a while, but the world isn't going anywhere. Hang on in there if you can. Life is always worth it, end quote. It only takes maybe 2 or 3 hours to read or listen to the entire book, and the consuming judgment that hit me about half an hour in is that depression and anxiety do not discriminate on the basis of intelligence, depth, or poesy. And to use Meghan's words, Matt is swimming at the shallow end of the pool. Whether this is sincere or not, I couldn't say. It's marketed as artless, and I guess it's relatable for many people because this is Amazon ranked at number 8,565, the top of the pops. And I couldn't help but find it ever so slightly contemptible that he barely improves as a writer, but his sales grow exponentially thanks to his Google keyword trends strategy. I really don't know what's worse, that he writes this drivel or that so many people lap it up. To quote Matt Haig himself in an August 2020 interview by Olivia Peter for The Independent, quote, the most frustrating thing I get is that people think I'm making money out of mental health. Obviously I am because I write books about it, but it's really hard because you want to explain and say, actually, I got a quarter of the advance for that book than I did for a novel, just £25,000, which was later topped up. And I was really discouraged from writing Reasons to Stay Alive, but you don't, because it's like, who cares? End quote. And there we have it. He cares about his coin, not any kind of literary legacy. His formula works, and he doesn't care what you think about it. As per his typical pattern, his novel is followed up the same year by a profitable children's book, the second in his Christmas series, The Girl Who Saved Christmas, ranked at 208,406. His next novel, How to Stop Time, is a story about reinvention. Again, here's the Amazon summary. Tom Hazard has a dangerous secret. He may look like an ordinary 41-year-old history teacher, but he's been alive for centuries. From Elizabethan England to Jazz-age Paris, from New York to the South Seas, Tom has seen it all. As long as he keeps changing his identity, he can keep one step ahead of his past and stay alive. The only thing he must not do is fall in love. How many lifetimes does it take to learn how to live? Soon to be a TV series starring Benedict Cumberbatch. End quote. Like the others, this one is full of bromides, many just borrowed and reworded. Like, quote, everything is going to be all right. Or if not, everything is going to be, so let's not worry. End quote. Quote, anxiety, Kierkegaard wrote, in the middle of the 19th century is the dizziness of freedom. End quote. Well, fuck me. This guy couldn't just be an undeserving millionaire author. He was dead set on being an insultingly vacuous, undeserving millionaire author, wasn't he? He also figured out that period romances sell better than YA, or at least they were trending better at the time. That bet took him back to the bank. This is ranked 4,023 on Amazon. We got another Kitty Christmas book in 2017, another kids book in 2018, and finally the last book he published before Meghan's Vogue edition went to print, Notes on a Nervous Planet, the book that this A Note from the Beach appears in. This is the second Matt Haig book I read in full, and the last, I assure you. This is how Matt Haig describes the book.
As you all be aware by now, I am trying to write about the messiness of the world and the messiness of minds by writing a deliberately messy book. That's my excuse anyway.
For me, it was an absolutely torturous 5-hour endurance test. I did not learn a single thing. I did not feel understood. I did not feel better about the world or myself, or like I had new tools to feel better. Tools to actually create meaningful change. LOL. Matt Haig does not deal in meaningful anything. I rated a 0 out of 5. I think it's possible people who are a solid 15 or 20 years younger than me, and or people who have had really very sheltered, privileged, regimented lives with no or few traumatic events might get a tip or two here or there if they aren't driven mad by the repetitiveness and shallowness. I genuinely don't believe anyone might have any kind of epiphany of reading this book, excepting perhaps a 12 or 13-year-old trying to understand how the world is structured and how some adults react to it. It's as if Matt took a long time, weeks, months even, skimming the news headlines and writing down every single first world problem that might cause anxiety and just compiled that into a book with zero added value. He actually tells on himself that he did this because a 5-minute plus chapter of the book titled News from a Nervous Planet is just a long list of these headlines.
Stress and social media fuel mental health crisis among girls, The Guardian. Chronic loneliness is a modern-day epidemic, Forbes. Facebook may make you miserable, says Facebook, Sky News. Steep rise in self-harm among teenagers, BBC. Workplace stress affects 73% of employees, The Australian.
Again, he goes on for literally 5 minutes, but you get the point. So it's all shit we already know, but most people simply cannot deal with deeply or daily. It honestly seems to me more likely to trigger unhappiness than alleviate it. Structurally, 90% of the book is various disdainfully delivered lists, like this.
Things that are faster than they used to be. Mail, cars, Olympic sprinters, news, processing power, photographs, scenes in movies, financial transactions, journeys, world population growth, the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest, navigation, technological progress, relationships, political events. The thoughts in your head, the whole of human history has been fast. Money, the first alphabet, the first musical notation system, the pyramids, Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity and Islam and Sikhism, Socratic philosophy, the concept of democracy, glass, swords, warships, canals, roads, bridges, schools, toilet paper, clocks, compasses, bombs, eyeglasses, mines, guns, better guns, newspapers, telescopes, the first piano, sewing machines, morphine, refrigerators, transatlantic telegraph cables, rechargeable batteries, telephones, cars, aeroplanes, ballpoint pens, jazz, quiz shows, Coca-Cola, polyester, thermonuclear weapons, rockets to the moon, personal computers, video games, bloody email, the World Wide Web, nanotechnology. Whoosh!
And this, which I will read to avoid copyright strikes. You'll be happy when you go to university. You'll be happy when you go to the right university. You'll be happy when you get a job. You'll be happy when you get a pay rise. You'll be happy when you get a promotion. You'll be happy when you can work for yourself. You'll be happy when you are rich. You'll be happy when you own an olive grove in Sardinia. You'll be happy when someone looks at you that way. You'll be happy when you are in a relationship. You'll be happy when you get married. You'll be happy when you have children. You'll be happy when your children are exactly the kind of children you want them to be. You'll be happy when you leave home. You'll be happy when you buy a house. You'll be happy when you pay off the mortgage. You'll be happy when you have a bigger garden in the countryside, with nice neighbors who invite you to barbecues on sunny Saturdays in July, with your children playing together in the warm breeze. You'll be happy to sing. You'll be happy to sing in front of a crowd. You'll be happy when your Grammy-winning debut album is #1 in 32 countries, including Latvia. You'll be happy to write. You'll be happy to be published. You'll be happy to be published again. You'll be happy to have a bestseller. You'll be happy to have a #1 bestseller. You'll be happy when they turn your book into a movie. You'll be happy when they turn it into a great movie. You'll be happy when you're J.K. Rowling. You'll be happy when people like you. You'll be happy when more people like you. You'll be happy when everyone likes you. You'll be happy when people dream of you. You'll be happy to look okay. You'll be happy to turn heads. You'll be happy with smoother skin. You'll be happy with a flat stomach. You'll be happy with a 6-pack. You'll be happy with an 8-pack. You'll be happy when every photo of yourself gets 10,000 likes on Instagram. You'll be happy when you've transcended earthly woes. You'll be happy when you're at one with the universe. You'll be happy when you are the universe. You'll be happy when you are a god. You'll be happy when you are the god to rule all gods. You'll be happy when you are Zeus, in the clouds with Mount Olympus, commanding the sky, maybe. Or Jesus take the wheel, this.
How to be happy. 1. Do not compare yourself to other people. 2. Do not compare yourself to other people. 3. Do not compare yourself to other people. 4. Do not compare yourself to other people. 5. Do not compare yourself to other people. 6. Do not compare yourself to other people. 7. Do not compare yourself to other people.
Isn't that fucking unbearable? Not to mention unforgivably lazy. As I said, 90% of the book. Perhaps 5% of the book is not particularly meaningful marketing stats or poorly chosen, sometimes even misinterpreted quotes from authors and academics far better than Matt Haig.
The sky has always been the sky. And of course, when we are looking at the sky, we aren't looking at something outside ourselves. We are looking, really, at where we came from. As physicist Carl Sagan wrote in his masterpiece Cosmos, the nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, the carbon in our apple pies were made in the interiors of collapsing stars. We are made of star stuff. The sky, like the sea, can anchor us. It says, hey, it's okay. There is something bigger than your life that you are part of, and it's literally cosmic. It's the most wonderful thing, and you need to make like a tree or a bird and just feel a part of the great natural order now and again. You are incredible. You are nothing and everything. You are a single moment in all eternity. You are the universe in motion. Well done.
A further 2% is dumb advice like,
How to stop worrying about aging. Reframe your idea of beauty. Be a rebel against marketing. Look forward to being the wise elder. Be the complex elegance of a melting candle. Be a map with 10,000 roads. Be the orange at sunset that outclasses the pink of sunrise. Be the self that dares to be true.
yeah, see, just be the orange at sunset. That'll make you feel better about those sagging jowls. When you're trying to get a new job at 60 and are worried about ageism in the interview process, the final 1% is this terrible fucking poetry.
An ode to social media. When anger trawls the internet, looking for a hook, it's time to disconnect and go and read a book.
For real. Or even weirder, fables?
An amphibious approach to life. Hello, turtle. Oh, hi there. Any advice on life? Why are you asking me? Because you're a turtle. And? Turtles have survived for millions of years. You've been around for 157 million years. That's more than 700 times as long as Homo sapiens have been around. You must know some things as a species. You're conflating length of existence with breadth of knowledge. It's just humans who have made a mess of the world. Turtles don't seem to. I know. We are near extinction because of you. I'm sorry. I was using you in the plural sense, but also, yes, you. I know. I'm a human. I share the blame. Yes, you do. Anyway, if you really want to know, the advice I would give is stop it. Stop what? It, the rushing after nothing. Humans seem in such a rush to escape where they are. Why? Is it the air? Does it not hold you up well enough? Maybe you need more time in the sea. I would say, stop it. Don't just take your time. Be your time. Move fast or slow, but be aware you will always take yourself with you. Be happy to paddle in the water of existence. Right. Look at my head. It's tiny. My brain to body mass ratio is embarrassing. But it doesn't matter, you see. If you take life carefully, you can focus. You can be how you need to be. You can have an amphibious approach to life. You can be at one with the rhythms of the whole earth, the wet and the dry. You can tune into the wind and the water. You can tune in to yourself. It's rather wonderful, you know, being a turtle. I bet. Thanks, turtle. Now, may I have some more seaweed?
One whole chapter is just him reading Twitter replies he's received for 7 minutes straight. In another, he just reads an excerpt from T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. It's a truly stunning, shameless level of lazy. I've never read anything like it before. He tries to explain away his own pandering and idiocy on social media and make himself the victim.
I once tweeted something silly in a state of anxiety. Anxiety is my superpower, I said. I didn't mean anxiety was a good thing. I meant that anxiety was ridiculously intense, that we people who have an excess of it walk through life like an anxious Clark Kent or a tormented Bruce Wayne, knowing the secret of who we are, and that it can be a burden of racing, uncontrollable thoughts and despair, but one just occasionally that we can convince ourselves has a silver lining. For instance, personally, I am thankful that it forced me to stop smoking, to get physically healthy, that it made me work out what was good for me and who cared for me and who didn't. I am thankful that it led me to trying to help some other people who experience it, and I am thankful that it led me, during good patches, to feel life more intensely. And then, suddenly, I was getting a lot of attention on Twitter. I decided to delete my tweet, but people had screen grabbed it and were rallying the ranks of the Twitter angry to direct their ire in my direction. Superpower? WTF? Matt Haig 1 is toxic. Delete your account. What a fucking idiot. And so on. And you stay on scared, watching this car crash of your own making, as your timeline fills with tens, then hundreds of angry people, convinced that as they were touching a raw nerve, they had a point. By the way, touched a raw nerve is an irrelevant phrase if you have anxiety. Every nerve feels raw. The anger became contagious, and I could feel it almost like a physical force radiating from the screen. My heart started to beat twice as fast. Everything felt like it was closing in. The air got thinner. I was backed into a corner. I began to feel a bit like reality was melting away. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. I lost myself in a brief panic attack. I felt an unhealthy fusion of guilt and fear and defensive anger and became determined never to live tweet my way out of anxiety again.
Okay, I'll stop there. But why am I roasting Matt Haig so thoroughly? Why is he getting sliced, diced, roasted, and toasted? Because I believe Meghan has copied him in the most despicable ways. We know that in the second and third weeks of January 2019, she was simultaneously telling Harry she was about to kill herself and their unborn child, and fake giggling over tea at the Ritz with Edward Enninful trying to land herself a Vogue cover. It stands to reason that she came across Matt Haig's very popular books about depression and anxiety and contemplating suicide because he was on TV all the time, promoting them. Several times on this channel, I've mentioned that I don't believe Meghan was ever suicidal. I believe she is a narcissist who manipulates people with the threat of suicide. It's a common thing with narcissists. I also don't believe she's ever actually been depressed. I believe she's the kind of vulnerable narcissist who sometimes thinks she's depressed when she hears other people describe their depression. But she's actually constitutionally emotionally void, of course, and simply experiencing a recent ebb in ego fuel that she interprets as depression because she's not really aware of her own narcissism. I think Meghan read Reasons to Stay Alive and imitated Matt Haig to convince Harry, realizing Reasons to Stay Alive was not particularly well done, yet extremely popular and doubtless very lucrative. Meghan, I believe, looked into Matt Haig's career to see what she could imitate. And it turns out quite a bit. Here's a list of my own. Let me know if I've missed anything. What Meghan copied from Matt Haig. Number 1, laziness. Matt Haig was her proof of concept that incredibly lazy writing, increasingly lazy writing, can get published by a celebrity author. Matt started with trendy gimmicks like YA, Shakespeare, ghosts, vampires, aliens, and time travel, but his best-selling books don't even bother with them. Pages upon pages of platitudes stolen from Pinterest, extensive, barely relevant quotes from famous writers pulled from the web, not even personal reading, equally not quite right statistics pulled from news articles that themselves are barely altered press releases, topics determined by the same soft news headlines, fifth grade level poetry. Matt Haig showed Meghan that all of this is not only publishable, but potentially very highly profitable. Number 2, self-help sells. Meghan saw that Matt Haig was not a subject matter expert in anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation, not qualified to give advice on them in any way, and in fact had quite little personal experience with them apart from a period of a few months when he was quite young 20 years ago. Yet, the public not only believes his personal account, but treats him as an authority on anxiety, depression, and suicide, and he's managed to make a killing off them. Pun intended. Item 2A. If anyone ever criticizes him for overstepping the mark, he has the built in defense of playing the victim because he gets to tell people to stop bullying him because they might potentially trigger one of his dark episodes. He also gets to tell them that they're the ignorant ones because they aren't broad minded and tolerant enough to accept disordered speech from a disordered person. To again quote Haig from his interview with Pater, quote, "The mental health conversation has a lot of hypocrisy. Everyone thinks we're so good at talking about mental health, but when we're talking because of mental health issues, we have zero compassion. We know that Kanye has bipolar. He once even described it as his superpower, and we know what bipolar is. We know it can create extreme highs and levels of erratic confidence, and then the opposite. So I get confused at people who think they are in tune with mental health, and then when anyone in the public eye exhibits symptoms of mental illness, unless it comes with a warning sign saying, I'm going through a mental episode, people don't even factor it in. We need to learn how to accept people who do or say toxic things because of a potential mental illness," end quote. He's not wrong, but does it really apply to him personally? Don't think I didn't notice you lazily copied Kanye on Twitter, Matt Haig. Number 3, it's all about brand extensions. Matt Haig isn't just a memoirist or novelist. We should only be so lucky. He does endless TV interviews and children's books and has piles of TV development deals from those books. I don't think it's a coincidence that he was one of Meghan's very first interviewees on the Archetypes podcast, appearing way back in their original 2020 Christmas special. We all know Meghan only invited celebrities she wanted to network with, imitate, and steal ideas from. So let's hear what she tried to get out of Matt Haig.
Human beings can rise to any challenge when we feel its importance. We've been given a chance to change, only you know if we did. So here's to us, and here's to 2021. Without the dark, stars have no way to shine. And next year, whatever light emerges will be there to dazzle us.
Oh, that's not very concrete. To quote Sarah Dedham in her January 2021 article, The Banality of Matt Haig in The Spectator, the only thing more excruciatingly banal than this is the way Meghan murmurs, "so true," at the end of every contribution. Banality is Matt Haig's thing. On Twitter, he offers pearls of consolation like, "Don't forget to breathe today. Maybe music is the answer, and today will not be the ideal day. It will just be a day, and you will just be a person, and that's okay." His problem is that he's trapped in the strange afterlife of the role model. Reasons made him famous because the story of his breakdown and recovery was reassuring, and his honesty was brave and compelling. People related to it. But having been anointed as a sort of secular priest of mental health, he has to keep delivering more of the same. Unfortunately, very few people have infinite resources of wisdom in them. Matt Haig certainly doesn't, which is why he's reduced to sharing homilies like, "Be kind to people, you bastards," all caps, asterisk, and don't call them bastards either. Every time one of his thoughts runs past my eyes, I end up wondering who exactly is going to feel better off because of this. Quote, "Thinking about death makes you analyze what life is. Anxiety makes you curious, and curiosity leads to understanding. I wouldn't be a writer without depression," Haig has said. Well, maybe, but more likely having depression just means you have depression. If you can learn anything from it, it probably begins and ends with knowing what having depression feels like. Its causes are complex, and the solutions do not subsist in phony promises of future joy or easy answers to the difficult stuff of human existence. Life is hard. Make it easier on yourself by not reading Matt Haig. Oh, and breathe. End quote. Chef's kiss, Sarah Dedham. That was a delicious Sunday roast. So let's see. In my meta mockery, I have employed a list, a series of plagiarized, unhelpful platitudes, an extensive quote from someone else to explain a point I'm too lazy to iterate myself. I think all that remains is a bad poem. There once was a poet named Haig, whose pronouncements were ever so vague. His true feelings and thought were nary and naught, his popularity a modern-day plague. Let me know in the comments below why you think all of Meghan's efforts to imitate Matt Haig's success have failed. Toodles! Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.